retirement. So keep your legacy alive and well. Okay, so hi guys, I am here with Phil Phillips, and I want to say thank you to Phil for being with us in a fairly busy phase. We are all working from home at the moment, so we're videoing this on Zoom. And Phil used to be, for many years, a senior manager at Cisco, running sales teams very successfully. And more recently has been running Pure Storage in Australia for how many years now?
Just over 3 years.
Just over 3 years. And so Pure being a challenger brand, a startup business a few years ago in the storage space, so not terribly sexy technology, but have done very, very well in the marketplace, mainly because of the people they've had in the team, I think. So, so thank you, Phil. Nice to meet you here, and welcome.
Yep, thanks, Rebecca. Yep, we've been spending a fair bit of time working from home in the last couple of weeks, and I've got my normal background, but we've been playing around with different Zoom backgrounds to make people laugh and keep it all interesting. But yeah, so when you always sort of have an element of your role where you can work from home, but I've always been in sort of customer facing roles, so you can do a morning from home or an afternoon, catch up on admin, but you've been stuck at home for a week and a half. It's pretty painful.
Yeah, I think you better get used to it as well. I would say we're going to be here for at least 3 months.
Yeah.
So yeah. So thank you. So I'd love to just have a chat to you initially, just in terms of yourself as somebody who, how are you attracted to organisations? So obviously you've worked for a couple of impressive organisations over the years. What is it that you look for when you're looking for somewhere you want to work?
Look, a lot of it is about the reputation of the company, and I get that their brand value to me personally is talking to. I've been around for over 30 years in the IT industry, so I know a lot of people in my territory, and a lot of customers and partners. Now have been personal friends for more than a decade, a lot of them, and so you sort of get to hear which organisations have a bad culture of micromanagement and setting unrealistic expectations in building pipeline, and or the technology doesn't really have any value add. So I look at for me, like I left my last job, I was there for almost 20 years. Before that, I think I was 2 years, and before that 7 years. So I sort of don't like to move around. I sort of try and find a place where I think there's some longevity, and the reputation of the technology, the people, the leadership, the local leadership, for us being in Australia, usually the APJ leadership. I've got a lot of mates that have gone to small little startups in Australia, and they've had a horrendous manager in Asia, and not understanding Australian culture and how long it takes to build pipelines. So you sort of look at all that, and it doesn't matter what money they offer you, if those sort of things don't ring true, you don't do it. Yeah. I learned that a long time ago from a work colleague who was offered an enormous amount of money to leave where we were working together. It was enormous. I mean, it was more than double what we were on, and we were on very good money. And we looked at this package, and it was, make your eyes water. Anyway, so he left and went there, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
He didn't have, unless, you had the eclipse, the sun, all these things line up. It was just no hope. And, he left after 4 or 5 months, couldn't get back into where he was. And this cost him a fortune. And, a lot of mental stress and pressure. So you really got to look at, a lot of things about the reputation of the place and do your research. For me at Pure Storage, they had a really good website. I was after something I've got a lot of energy, and I was after, that real, challenger experience. I love the hunt for new business. I love that sort of pressure. And, the website looked good. The people that interviewed me, I knew a few people there. They were good. I knew them. But what I did was I actually rang customers that used the tech. And there was one particular customer, and she's a CTO of a law firm, and I've known her for probably 20 years. And I know that she's really tough on her job, because there was things when I was a rep a long time ago that she wouldn't buy because the tech wasn't quite up to what she needed for her organisation. So she was a tough customer. And I called her and I said, look, I see that you're listed as a reference site for Pure Storage. What do you think? And straight away, a smile lit up on her face. She goes, Phil, my team love this stuff. And I thought, look, if they've managed to win her over, and I know I won her over a little bit, but not for everything I had, in my kit bag over the years, I thought that's something good. Called another customer just to say, look, you're using this stuff, you're listed on their website. What are your thoughts? Same thing, glowing reference. So I thought, okay, I know a couple of people in the organisation, trust them. They're wanting me to come on board and build a sales team, double the size of the business, really build it out, help with hiring SEs and partner managers, all that sort of stuff. Thought, well, okay, people I know in there, good. Don't know the company, they haven't been around long. We've only been in Australia for a few years. Gartner reports all look good, but knowing a couple of people inside, validating it with customers, that for me that's a positive.
Yeah.
When you talk to customers and they've had 5 different AMs in the last 2 years representing the technology, alarm bells ring.
Yes.
Doesn't matter, So you've got to look at that, and and that's what I do, and it worked. It worked for me. It served me well.
And I know people talk a lot about culture of organisation. How much do you think the culture can lead the way versus necessarily a leader, a specific leader in the business? Because I've found over the years that I've had some people feed back to me that they're working for an average culture but an amazing leader, and that works for them, and vice versa.
Look, I think work culture, is probably one of the most important things. Not the only thing that you look for, in a company, or if you're trying to recruit people. And to foster a good culture, everyone has to work hard. It starts from the leader, and sharing that responsibility out to everyone. There's not a single one thing that you say you do this for culture. It's a team effort. And also, I've made mistakes. When we've had employees, or I've had employees in my team that are really, really good performers, but they leave a trail of destruction, or they're negative. If I haven't acted and moved them on, that does more for the culture, because it's almost like you're rewarding a person that's got very bad traits, but because they're a good sales performer, you leave them on, but then you bring the rest of the team down. Now, I've made that mistake. I've been seduced by the sales numbers, and then you just see the mood of the team quarter by quarter going down and down and down. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what offsites you do, doesn't matter what events you do, you can't bring them up. You move that person on, and it's like all new oxygen came in the team. Bang! It almost recovers straight away. So there's a lot of things, and having 1 or 2 team members that aren't quite the cultural fit, that's toxic. So you've got to make the hard decision, and it's hard because you get someone that's a good performer. You get everyone wants the results, but at what cost? And I've had 2 situations in my career where I was probably a bit slower than I should have been. I recovered from them, thank God. Probably better, because then the team thought, what, if they put themselves in my position, you get sucked in by you get seduced, not sucked in, you get seduced by the success. But if it's going to bring the whole team down, not worth it. And that usually is the thing that I've found that makes a culture killer the worst things, having a bad team member. A negative SC, a negative partner account manager. It doesn't necessarily have to be an account manager. It can be someone else that's part of the virtual team that brings everyone down. Move them on.
Toxicity breeds toxicity.
It's a hard thing though. You got to, and I've been guilty of hiring the wrong person. And I think, geez, I've learned a lot over the years,
Yeah, yeah,
and if you look at, when I interview, I've built my own sort of, template that, works for me. And, culture is a big part of that.
yeah. Out of interest, how do you align to culture? So what are the key elements you're looking for as opposed to just performance?
Look, it's how they carry themselves. It's how they behave. I do a lot of my interviews in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I like to disarm people. I don't want them to come into the office and they're nervous. They may get, if they're coming from a competitor, they're not going to feel good coming into where I work, because it's, so I take them somewhere where they're disarmed, and quite often I can tell from their behavior how they order coffee even.
Yeah.
Manners. Just little things like that. Half an hour of spending some time with someone, you get a pretty good feel for what they're going to look like in the team.
Yeah.
For me, when I hire, I look at, okay, what does good look like? What's the ultimate look that I want that person to do? And then at the end of that interview, I try and, after I've got my whole criteria I use, sales skills, competency, all that stuff. But there's a certain percent of it, 5% of it is what's my gut feel.
Yeah.
And that could swing someone from getting the job or not getting the job.
Interestingly, though, I think gut feel is something that's built up over time through experience. So it's actually something that you've like you say, you've made mistakes, you've had wins. Do you model?
Well, I remember once, Rebecca, I was probably doing 7 or 8 interviews a day, for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, hiring a lot of team, and when you work for a large organization, you try and put people through 5 or 6 interviews. Now, they're not formal interviews. You're not trying to grill them and, that sort of stuff. It's about getting to know them, and it's about them getting to know the organization. It's got to work both ways. If they don't want to work for you, if they don't like the culture, they don't like the values, then you don't want to hire them. You don't want them on board.
Yeah.
So it works for both people. And that's why I'm sort of pretty passionate about not trying to intimidate people or do things like that. Let people be themselves. I'll quite often, drop a swear word or two to, really bring it down to street level, just to get the real person out of their interview mode. I remember once I was in this coffee shop in Flinders Lane, and I was walking towards the back of the cafe where I had the little table there, and the waitress there said, "Phil, are you interviewing that person?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Don't hire him. He's rude." She got to know my style. I've done a lot of interviews, and you know what? She was right. He would have been toxic.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how smart this person was, how good the results. Toxic.
Yeah.
So you got that's important.
Yeah. So are there particular values that are really important to you as a leader that you hire to and that you sort of expect in your team?
Look, there is, but it also is on the role. So different roles. If you're hiring someone who is a direct sales rep that works alone, with an SE or an architect team, they've got a very different skill set to someone that needs to work through partners. Very different. And the values, the basic things are being on time, carrying yourself well, just the basic elements, good manners, those sort of values, are table stakes. If you haven't got those, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to setting the expectations around values and behaviours with your team, do you do that formally, informally? How do you manage it?
Look, it's a constant thing. So we've just started we're 1 quarter into a new financial year. So bring the whole team together, all of the virtual team, we all get in the room, and we basically discuss it. What are the expectations? What are their expectations on me? What are my expectations on them? What are the business expectations for all of us? Yeah. And we sort of agree on, okay, you know, if we're using Salesforce as a forecasting methodology, now we've got to do it. You know, it drives us all nuts, but yeah, we've got to do it. You know, if we're going to, you know, work with partners, which we do, what are the expectations for registering deals? You know, how are we going to behave? And we bring them all out on the table, and yeah, we just make sure and we measure it. You know, if we've got, you know, like this year we've got, I think, 7 core partners that we're going to be focusing on. And every one of my meetings, I bring those 7 partners up. Well, what have we done this week, guys? I mean, it's a bit hard now. We're not doing coffees, we're not doing lunches, we're not doing events, but, you know, what are we doing? How many, you know, accounts or prospects did we talk with that partner?
Yeah.
If they're working with a different partner, I'll pull them up. Wait on, that's not on our 7 focus. That's not on our list of 7. Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And just to keep us on check, you know, and they've got to do the same with me. You know, if I don't do enough, you know, joint visits, if I don't, you know, I've got my sort of matrix list where I've got to, you know, have my peers and customers and partners. You know, if I don't do my bit, I get pulled up. So we've sort of got this running worksheet that keeps us all on track.
Yeah, excellent. And do you, as a team, how do you call out positive behaviours? Do you call out, and do you call out the negative as well? So
be careful on the negatives. You know, it depends on what the negative is. You know, if someone's done something really wrong, I don't want to publicly, you know, that's not a good way of giving feedback. But if I do get pulled up by some, you know, and get feedback, I will address it.
Yeah.
And I will give the specific example. And if it means I'm moving someone on from the team, you know, I'll bring the immediate team together and I'll explain, look, this is why I've done it. You know, there are these sort of values and behaviours that we have as an organisation, and they're not negotiable. They're not negotiable. And if I look at, you know, my career, and I've, you know, unfortunately had to move on quite a few people, just, you know, working in the industry for 30 years, and I'd say probably over 90% of them are nothing to do with performance. It's to do with doing the wrong thing by a partner, by a customer, or by someone internal. Now, that's going to get you in more trouble than not making a number. Not making a number can be coached. You know, have you got the wrong territory? Have we set you up for failure with the wrong number? You know, have we got the wrong product for your vertical? You know, there's lots of things that can result in not being a performer. But, you know, someone that lies to a partner, someone that, you know, does something that's just against the values of, you know, the organisation, or just common decency, you know, you can't tolerate them. Everyone's allowed to make a mistake, and if there's a misunderstanding, no problems. But you know when it's a mistake and when it's not.
So I've always known you as having a reputation as a good leader and someone people want to work for. Do you know, are you conscious and aware of that? Is that something that you try to manage at all, or is it just...
No, I just be myself. And the thing is, Rebecca, I would never ask anyone to do something I wouldn't do. You know, like, you know, it's just, you know, if head office wants us to do something and it's wrong, I'll call up head office. We're not doing it. You know, you don't do things because someone has got the wrong idea about it. And I'll, you know, and if I can't negotiate it, well, I'll move on. You know, if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to expect my team to do it. And I'm not a micromanager. I believe in giving people the coaching and the skills, the training that they need to be able to do the job, and then I give them enough rope to let them do their role, and I'll manage them along the way. They're going to hang themselves before I hang them. And people like that because, you know, I did make the mistake in my very early days of sales management where I wanted everyone to be like me. And I remember, you know, we were in a very competitive situation, and, you know, I was like an animal, you know, just on the phone doing all this. And one of the trainees in my team, he said to me, look, I don't think, if this is what I need to do to be a sales guy, I'm not cut out for it. And I was horrified because this guy was really good. And I had to sort of take a step back and think, geez, you know what? You know, and that's sort of where I learned, you know, you don't want everyone to be like you. You know, you've got to, you know, and then what reinforced it was probably a year or so later, I involved with my son at Auskick, you know, the little football thing on a weekend. Now, I can't play sport for shit. I'm hopeless. And, trying to teach kids how to play football when you can't play yourself, you can't lead by example because you haven't got the example to lead by. So I very quickly learnt which kid had the right skills, and then I could assemble the right kid. Okay, you're good at handball and you're good at drop kicking. And then I just sat back, got a coffee and, encouraged. So I was lucky to have a few good lessons, the hard way early on in my career where I could sort of, and that's probably why people, enjoy working for me. I don't play games. With me, I am what you see, I don't try and dress it up. No games. I don't understand the politics or games, to say it how it is.
One of the things that I notice about you is you have a huge amount of humility, which is it is not as, you don't often find that always in certain leaders. So, that's a phenomenal thing. And the self-awareness, I think, is really key as well. Do you look for that in the people that you hire?
Yeah, I hate arrogance and, game playing. It's just no one likes it. So I just try and find people that can be themselves, say it how it is. Everyone's got different ways of doing the role. It gets done in the end, and there's not one way that's better than another because, it's like doing presentations. The way I get up and do a keynote is going to be very different to someone else. And one's not necessarily better than the other. And, I just really try and make sure, in my team, everyone's got their way of doing it. That's why when you're building a team and you've got, multiple people in locations, you've really got to make sure you have it all balanced. So one of my remote teams in Western Australia, and I've got two very different style of AMs, both very, very successful, totally opposites. Now, in the first 6 months, I didn't have the territory right. It wasn't balanced correctly for their styles. Public sector accounts need a different sort of individual than corporate sort of accounts. And I had it wrong. And so, I changed it. I went to Perth. We spent 4 days together. We got to work on that together to make sure, when you disassemble territories, people are very nervous. You've got to make sure that they're all on board. Anyway, we're a quarter in. Both guys are doing really, really well, and they're suited. Now, I could have done that in a 5-minute exercise. I could have just said, here's the spreadsheet, do it. But if you don't put them through the journey and let them buy into it, you're never going to get the executable results. So, I'm happy to do that. And you've got to do that.
No, that's fantastic. Now I'm just going to consult my notes for 1 second and just see if there's anything I've missed. So if you had to give me 3 things that are fundamental in attracting great talent to your business, what do you think they are?
Okay, so things, repeat the question.
3 things that are fundamental in attracting great talent to your business.
Okay, so it's hard if you're in the wrong organisation, right? If you're, it helps being in a company that people know and want to join. So right now, if you're Amazon, if you're Google, you've got people lining up at your door. When I was at Cisco many, many years ago, people were lining up. So most of the work, it was there, right? The brand, the reputation of the company, it was just there. So it really depends on what organisation you're in. If you're in an organisation that's large, people can come in and get a long-term career out of it because there's career growth. That's a very different proposition to hiring people than if you're just in a small challenger brand with 1 or 2 products. So you've really got to look at the situation. So when you're at a challenger brand like where I'm at the moment, it's a very, very different way of attracting people to what I was doing prior to some of my roles at Cisco. So here, for example, I've got to put a lot more time in myself to find people and spend time explaining Pure Storage. I'll invite them to events. I'll get them to meet prospects, customers. We do a lot of things for pipeline building, and make sure they're comfortable that this is an environment, even though it's not sexy. It's an environment you can thrive on. You can have fun. The culture's good. You can make your earnings here. And really have a good it's a good place. Now, we're not going to overburden you with administration. We're not going to overburden you with, crazy big numbers. So it's a different style. So you really got to look at what the role is, what the organisation is, and then you've got to do selling yourself. You can't expect people to wanting to come to you. I'm the sales guy. But you can't oversell it though, because if you oversell it, remember, I'm carrying the target. So if I oversell it and I bring someone on and they're not successful, by way of virtue, I'm not successful. So it's a balancing act of not, and I've got people that, when I moved here, so I want to work for you, I said, look, you're not suited. I wouldn't hire you. Not, I'm mates with you, but this is the wrong place.
Yes.
I did bring someone on that I knew, it was going to be a risk, and it didn't work out for them.
Yeah.
What they were good at, I couldn't offer them pure.
Yeah.
And we've only got several products, so wanting to own a relationship and go deep and wide and spend months and months on the customer, well, we don't offer that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a HP, that's a Cisco or an IBM.
Yeah.
So you really got to know what good looks like in the role, and then try and match up the individual so it works for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do come across that quite a bit in the market, is people who tell me, I was oversold, or I was sold something that wasn't real. And so fundamentally you're burning money, because if you're bringing someone into the organization and it's never going to work because they've come in on different basis, then you really got to start again in 6 months, which is extremely expensive and time consuming.
Well, it's costly to me personally. If I'm the sales manager or the sales director and I've got, say, 10 reps, and each of those reps has a quota, I own that quota ultimately. So if I'm down, then that's, that I've got to find that number from either the other reps overachieving, or I've got to bring someone in. So it's critical that you don't oversell it, because ultimately the hiring manager pays. I'm carrying this. The time it gets to my manager, who's got 5 of me, one missing here, one missing there, doesn't matter, because the number's a lot bigger and it gets absorbed by a few people overachieving of it. But at my level, I'm in the hot seat. It's the hardest role to make sure you get right, because it costs. I won't make my number if I get the wrong people.
Yes.
And that's why that's why it's also hard, because when you do have someone that's killing their number, but they're bad on the culture, that's why it's so hard to move them on. Because you know what it's going to cost you, but ultimately you pay more if you don't do it.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah. And so next question, thank you for being so open with all of this. Next question is 3 things that you think are fundamental to retaining talent?
Yep. Look, again, matching it to the individual. So I remember there was one inside sales rep that was very, very good, very good. And he made it very clear to me that what his future goal was, and it was to move to Asia.
Right.
So I basically did it. I was like, okay, I'll hire you in my role, which will make it easy for you to move to Asia, but I need you to guarantee me, 2 years, and I need you to go hard. And that was so what I did was I attracted him into a role for his next role.
Yeah.
But for the 2 years that he gave me, it was fantastic. So you've got to have that environment, where you don't want to necessarily hold on to people for that role. What you want to do is help them for their next role.
Yeah.
But while they're in your role, you want them to overachieve and excel.
Yeah.
And that's really, what works.
Yeah.
And I look at it, in terms of that environment, so if you hire correctly from the start, it's easy. So if you hire right, then you don't have to do 3 things. It's just normal. But the reality is you need to have an environment where, the individual can succeed. That's what they're there for. No one wants to turn up to work and fail. And success is not just about earning money. It's about feeling good about waking up. It's about, not being scared to see customers because your tech is breaking all the time. There's a lot of little factors in what good looks like, but it's also how do they grow for other roles?
Yeah.
I don't expect someone to be in the same role with the same set of customers forever. That's unrealistic. 3-4 years in a role with a certain mix of customers, that's enough. You know, but what am I doing to help them grow for the next role, whether it's with me or without me? And I remember one of my top AMs of all time, but a few, I was his reference for him leaving and going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that hiring manager asked me, would you hire him again? I go, mate, of course I would. You know, he works for me now. I don't want him to go, but it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, he moved on and he did really well there. And then he's moved on somewhere else and he's, you know, done well. So that's what it's about. You know, you don't have to retain them just for that, your role. You know, if you work for a company that has, you know, it's a big, wide, lots of things, it's good for people to move around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so does that help in terms of planning for you as well? So if you can have people being open with you and you can be really clear on what their steps are, what their next steps are, you've got time to plan. Yeah.
Always. Yeah. And that's the sort of environment. Just, you know, no one's ever going to be in trouble with me for telling the truth.
Yeah.
And you can pick it. If you know your team, you can pick it when they're not performing. You know, there's an issue at home. There's an issue, you know, with the customer, with something. You might not be able to get to the exact, you know, specific problem, but you know that there's a problem there, and you plan for it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. I'm just going to consult my notes one more time. Just one other question on partnering. So have you used many partners in terms of recruiting, bringing people into your business, that sort of thing? And how do you work with them?
You've got to put a lot of time into explaining the role and the accounts.
Yeah. So
the mistakes, you know, I've made in the past where, you know, you just go and use that recruiter and you're going to have a couple of problems and I'm looking for a rep, and then they bring you 10 wrong people. Well, that's my fault because I haven't explained what sort of AM or what sort of SC I'm after. So, you know, I will actually print out the account list and I'll have, you know, is there a customer, is there a prospect? And, you know, and I'll spend a lot of time with the recruiter saying, well, this is what I'm after. This is the sort of account. This is the sort of skills I need to break into this. You know, it's, you know, 20% customers, 80% prospects. You know, it's mainly a BDM role, but it's strategic or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the recruiter can only, they're not mind readers. You know, you can only know what I'm, you know, the more I explain what I'm after, then it's easier for the recruiter to then bring me the right results. You know, it's a bit like saying to a builder, build me a house, and then come back in a year and think, oh, hang on, you built me a 3-story house. I only want a single story. Well, if you don't explain what you want, you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why a lot of people make mistakes, especially, you know, just not putting that time in and qualifying it. And then you just waste a lot of time, and candidates, they're wasting time. They turn up and think, well, this is not the role I'm after.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate for investing time and energy into the recruitment process and being proactive in terms of, you know, how you work with the recruiting team, who are, you know, everyone involved needs to be on the same page and they need to be sending the right messages, and they need to also understand what your expectations of bringing someone into this role are. So I think it's absolutely crucial, and it really does surprise me how many companies don't put the energy or the effort. It's kind of like an afterthought, or it's a quick grapple at the end to make something happen, and then wonder, firstly, either they can't attract the right people in the right time frame, or they're not retaining the people when they come on board. So so I think that's a really key part of it, is time and energy into that process.
It's like any partnership and anything. You just got to, you know, explain. You know, what are the expectations? What's, you know, and then, you know, people are, you know, you're working with good people generally in the industry. So, you know, if they've got the right info, they've got the right benchmark, they know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Fabulous. Is there anything else you would like to add on this subject?
Look, I think we've, you know, covered it all. I mean, I think, you know, when I look at, you know, hiring, you know, you've got to, you know, some of the things I've learned is not hiring people that I think I just like.
Yes.
So I built myself, actually, well, I can't say I built it, but I had someone in my team that I was developing for management, and we were doing a lot of recruiting at the time. So I had had him build me a template. We work together.
Yeah.
And basically what I do is I have a scoring system of up to 100. And, not suitable is less than 60. If they've got 60 to 80, progress it. And if they're anything over 80, they're a strong candidate. And what I've done is we've got it broken up into, their sales skills and experience, soft skills, attitude, leadership, cultural fit, aspirations, and then judgment. Because what happened is I would go into a lot of interviews and I really like that person. Hang on, do they know anything about complex architectures? Do they know anything about security? Oh my God, I've got to redo the interview. Because you get, I've got to keep maybe it's just a problem that I have, staying structured. So I'll always make sure I have this. And, some of the things is, selling with partners. Give me examples of how you've sold with partners. Who have you worked with? And you quickly can tell whether they've got the competency.
Yeah. And
then I'll score them. So, okay, selling with partners, they do it. They've done it for the last 3-4 years. Okay, that's a 5 out of 5. They're giving me good things, What's your understanding of the market? Well, they might not be good at security or storage or whatever. They might give them a 1. And then when you end of it, that's never failed me.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. I would love to have a look at this tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing, it's just what I use myself so I can stay on track.
Yeah.
Because if I can't answer the question, then I know I haven't done enough probing. And it never fails me. And I just do that because then I can, and then if I'm interviewing for someone else and they say, well, how'd you go? And I say, look, I'm a bit concerned that they haven't got enough, industry knowledge, or they've never worked with partners before. They just haven't got enough executive presence, or I can then at least provide the feedback. And then when the candidate doesn't get the role and they want feedback, I'll say, well, this is where you were lacking. And it gives me something to go back with, because not everyone wants feedback, but a lot of good people do.
Yeah.
Look, why wasn't I successful in getting the role? Especially if they went through a lot of process. I can say, look, the other person had better presentation skills. This role requires you to get up and do, large audience presentations twice a week. You haven't done that versus the other candidate.
Yeah.
And then, it's real.
Yeah. That brings me to another point, actually, is and I'm glad you raised it, is, the feedback and how you send people out into the market, messaging your culture and your business, because even if you don't hire them, they're still out there talking to other good people, right? So sending them out, feeling as if you've actually cared and that you've, shared this information with them, and it's been a proactive and enjoyable process anyway, I think is a really important
they've got to, I find they've got to want it. A lot of people, turn up to interviews and, you get to the end of it and you think it's not right for them, it's not right for us. So you don't, you've sort of moved on. You said your hellos, you had your dance, and you're not going any further,
Yeah.
It's when you sort of progress, where it's, is when I think, you need to have that, feedback.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we would want it, so we should give it to other people. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered everything. I really appreciate it. And maybe you won't be doing too much more hiring in your career.
No, it looks like retirement is settling in. I'm finishing up at the end of the quarter, and I'm going to attempt at trying to retire. I love it. I love work so much. So I don't know how I'm going to go. And I love the role I'm in as well, but can't work forever. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of consulting and coaching other leaders for, on and off when you feel like it or something. Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks, Rebecca. Talk soon. Thank you. All right. Take care. Bye. See you.